Carver have very kindly provided me with the 2 new cables and the interface software with which to update the Carver via this port underneath the back seat. This is what the cable looks like coming out of the computer. The first cable, the peak cable, and then going into the CAN bus dongle cable. Not a lot of room in my garage, it's a little bit fiddly to do, a bit cramped, but there you go, you can see the cable going under the back seat into the port. Not a great port, this one. You have to get a screwdriver to disconnect it every time. It's a little bit of a pain, but it does the job. So here is the CAN bus software, the Carver interface software, sorry. Now when you connect, you can see that it says no firmware version available, and then it tells you that the update is required. Unfortunately, OBS appears to have cropped this window for some reason. Need to sort that out next time I do it. You can see that you've got lots of other options here apart from the firmware update. You can do calibration of the sensors as well, so you can see real-time information coming from the CAN bus and various different systems with regard to tilt, steering force, that type of thing. You've got the error history available. You can see that I've got some CAN bus warnings, blinker, beeper errors coming in real time with the odometer reading on the right. So 381 kilometers is roughly what I've done at this current time, but nothing coming through continuously, so no more errors, which is good. So I had a few troubles along the way that the Carver support people very kindly helped me out with. Excuse me. So, yeah, why do I keep coming back to this? There was lots of toing and froing as I was trying to do the firmware update to start with. And like I said, the Carver support team were very helpful on the emails, going backwards and forwards. Here you can see more calibration options. Down at the bottom you've got the throttle and brake, so you can actually press the throttle and the brake to see that that information is being received. You see here that I'm trying to do the update and finally managed to get it working when I managed to do the correct procedure, which was to have the car switched off, have the cables connected but the software not connected, and then when you hit the firmware update you plug in the power to charge the Carver. So I think this software needs to be in place and trying to run before the self-test of the Carver, startup self-test, has actually started. So here you've got the software being updated for each one of the subsystems. So BMS controller at the top, the Hub A controller, Hub B controller, DVC controller, and then the beeper controller. You can see just about at the bottom there is an information window that tells you when each part is completed. So it has actually completed for the BMS controller at this point. Then it will go tell you that Hub A is completed, Hub B is completed, etc. The DVC controller update didn't complete for me even after leaving it for some time, but I read in the manual, which Carver also supplied very usefully. I've now got all of the manuals that are available, service manuals, so that's going to be really useful moving forward. So yeah, the DVC controller didn't update or didn't complete, but the manual said that this can happen sometimes, so I do actually stop the update, I do a reconnect and go through the steps of the procedure again, just to make sure that the actual version of the DVC controller is actually 8.1.12. So you can see at the bottom there it's now saying flashing of Hub A controller is finished, as all the other components had as well, apart from the DVC controller. This is me in real time at this point watching the screen to see if it actually does do the update. It's actually a fairly simple process. Once you've done it once, the next couple of times will be very easy. So the reason for doing this update is to do the miles per hour from kilometers per hour update. So the dashboard actually shows miles on the odometer and obviously miles per hour on the speedo, which is required for the UK. So here's where I've kind of given up on the firmware update at this point. I'm just going back through the other components just to see that everything else is functioning correctly. We're still collecting information. You can see here that I press on the brake pedal and the throttle pedal to see the data coming back from the CAN bus for that brake pedal again. Interesting, that's only registering 30% when I press on there, so I need to check the brakes, brake fluid, etc. to make sure that's all working correctly. The brakes do seem quite weak. And again, coming back to the firmware update just to see if anything's changed. I think because I've gone between screens, it's now showing 000 as the actual version. So I've done a stop on the firmware update and I do a restart of the application just to refresh the data, which should be just coming up. There you go, firmware is up to date. It was just showing there. I've done a reset which stops the application and restarts it, connecting again, just waiting for the version numbers to come up, being a bit impatient there. So you can see it actually says the actual version is 8.1.12 now, which is actually the correct version. With every release of the service interface, it actually includes all of the updates for the various different subcontrollers, which is really good. So there you can see I've just regathered that information coming from each of the components. You can see the DVC controller is up to date and everything is up to date. Everything is in line, the versions. Yeah, so whenever there is a software update for any one of these subcomponents, BMS or the hubs, they will release a new version of the software interface which you can download and use to update your Carver. Normally this will be done by the service centres, but obviously being in the UK I don't have any service centres. Just doing a connect and disconnect again to make sure the software is updated. There you go, firmware is up to date. And now I go to the calibration, which is where you can switch from kilometers an hour to MPH down the bottom left middle there. What you can't see is once you've actually done that, you click on a button across on the right hand side to confirm those changes, and there's a window showing you whether those instructions have been sent to the Carver and whether they've been received. So that's now done. And everything is good. Now cut to the final video clip that I got actually showing the mile per hour on the screen. Software update has been done. I'm fully charged and plugged in at the mains. Just going to unplug the power to switch off. Difficult to do with one hand. There we go. Put the cable back in the receptacle. The car is now off. Now if I come to the car and switch on, start up, miles per hour. Yes, excellent. 236 miles, and fantastic. Good job.